Welcome to the Soul Tapes podcast. My name is Adam Cruz.
And my name is Antonio Reyes.
And I'm Joshua Chavez.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Yes. So for those who have listened to the past 29 episodes, we have constantly referenced Pastor Josh. Yeah. So this is 30. So this is.
We've been waiting for this episode since we started.
Man, I'm glad to be here.
Hey, boss.
Thanks for having me.
We've been actually, like Adam said, we've been referencing you for the longest time, almost in every episode.
I was gonna say probably since the first episode.
Yeah, almost in every episode. It's like, hey, he said this.
Yeah.
He pushed this on us.
Yeah.
He challenges in this way. So I think at the end of the day, this has been an episode that we've been waiting for for a long time.
Cool.
Yes. I know you've been busy, but
let's make it worth our time. Come on, man.
No, totally. Yeah, I think and if you want, you can just share maybe a little bit about, for those that may not know who you are, a little bit about your story. I think that's super valuable for people to listen.
I am a 45-year-old Angelino, born and raised here in Los Angeles, California, West Side.
Yeah.
Born to Salvadorian parents. Soy salvadoreño, centroamericano, born here in California. And I am, I get to do many things. One of the greatest things I get to do is I get to be an awesome husband to Noemi Chavez, a Mexican from Southgate, California, via Durango, Mexico. Yeah. And I get to be a father to two amazing Mexidorians, Joshua and Steven. And then all the other stuff, man, I just get to do, it's just opportunities God lets me be a part of in life. I lead an amazing church in Southern California now, even in Mexico. It's called Revive Church. We are a multiplying church. And I'm just honored and humbled to lead that. I also work as a discovery manager for Stadia Church Planting Network, where I help church planters kind of discern and discover what their gifts, their what's the word I'm looking for? Their attributes, their readiness, their spiritual gifts for church planting. Not all of us are called to go. Some of us are called to be a part of the sending. Yeah. So that's what I get to do, man.
Yeah. Well, we are extremely grateful for your time and
Thanks.
to have you on. Yep. There's so much that we can talk about. So, of course, it'll probably never feel like enough. But I know, Antonio, you've kind of, we've been kind of dabbling with a couple ideas. And
what are you most excited to, I want to say, coming back to, or maybe to experience again after this whole pandemic?
I'm excited for, I'm excited for the new, it's such a glorified word, and a lot of people hate it, a lot of people love it, but I love the new normal.
Okay.
I do, especially when it comes to church. I think that what church was pre-pandemic was, it was stagnant, bro. It was like water that no longer had a flow. That's just my opinion.
That's good. Yeah.
This is my opinion, not the opinion of Revive Church or any other church. Yeah. But I believe that, man. I think that we spent so much of our time, treasure, and talent making the weekend experience the end goal. And I'm guilty of it. I loved it. I was just talking to somebody. Recently that pre-pandemic, I don't know that we were a struggling church. I don't think we were. True. So for me, the hardest part before, even today or as we look into the future, was having to kill something that you loved.
That's true.
Yeah. That's hard.
I loved it because I did, man. I loved it.
To kill something you love.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, no, I actually remember you talking about that. About killing something that you love, and that's
so we hung out in July and we went to Yosemite, and I was not in a healthy place in that season, and a lot of that stemmed from that place of I by the grace of God, I haven't lost a close loved one yet. Both of my parents are alive. All my siblings are alive. My children are alive, and I'm grateful. I don't say that in any way to dismiss someone else's pain, because I know a lot of people. I have close friends and loved ones who have lost close loved ones, and I've grieved with them because I love them, but I don't feel their pain because it's not my parents. Yeah. It's not my, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I have grieved, but when it comes to Revive, this was the thing that I've given my life to for the last 15 years. And so pre-pandemic, Doc.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was in essence.
It was working.
The reality
It was-
is that it was multiplying.
It was my identity. My identity. And I mean, you and I have had conversations about like affirmation and stuff. Like, I don't need words of affirmation. I don't need someone to call me and say, yo, you killed it. Like, that to me makes me uncomfortable, because I'm like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
But for me, the takeaway was like Monday, Tuesday, I felt like I'm hitting my chest like,
Yeah.
man, look, our church is growing. God is doing things, you know. So pandemic hits, and I'm like, there was none of that.
Facts.
Yeah. Dang.
So everything that affirmed me, like, I had zero affirmations from March 2020 to March 2021. I've had zero affirmation when it comes to me
Yeah.
as a pastor.
Yeah.
I want you to know that.
So do you feel like you had a detox from yourself?
I've had to learn not to. I've had to learn to find my self-worth in who I am as a husband, as a father, as a friend. I have another job, and you know, I do a good job there, but you know, it's the you're not measuring growth there, because what I do is I help individuals get to the next step,
Yeah.
but the next step, I'm not a part of the next step.
Yeah.
Where at church, you know, there's like you're a part of everything,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so in my other job, although I get affirmed, verbally, like, hey, you're doing a great job, I'm a manager, I get opportunities to lead in different spaces, but it's not me coming home at the end of the day looking at like, look what we built, Doc.
Yeah. Yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah. Totally.
So in the last 12 months, like, so I think July, so we went into pandemic, March, April, May, June, July, 6 months into it. Like, I hit the lowest low. I was looking at other things, you know what I'm saying? To blame other things for my lack of affirmation and success and stuff. And so coming out of that, I pressed into community. I live by that. If you don't have people that you could be vulnerable with to help you, you're only as sick as those around you. And so I had to press into people around me that were healthier than me to help me get out of my funk. So
yeah. Dang. So much for casual conversation.
I know. It's just the start of it.
That is good, man. I mean, that's honest and that's real, and that's, I think a lot of people can relate to that. This has been an up and down season for a lot of people, but I think the ability to kind of reassess what we've been doing for the past 10, 15 years and now see that the future is changing and what the church looks like, what even our own lives look like. I mean, it's just, there's no doubt that the fact that the future is looking, different for a lot of people. And I think that time was clearly, it's crazy because I feel like it's not that God needed the pandemic to do that, but I think he used it in order for us to be able to reflect on our own lives. Because I think that would be a assessment of what happened, right? Because I would hate to say that God, caused it. It was more of using the mess and the destruction to allow us to
Romans 8:28. All things work for the good of them, right?
Yeah.
But had it happened, there'd be something good.
Yeah.
Had it not happened, there's still something good. So, it's easy to sit there and blame God for everything that's good or bad. And, we just have to keep pressing through, man.
Yeah. Thinking about when you were in your, late 20s, early 30s, and you can go back to our age, what would you tell yourself at that point? What would you do differently? What does that look like for you?
You're just vital.
Man, that's a loaded question. So earlier Antonio talked about process. That's the word that stood out to me.
Yeah.
And I think in my 20s, if I go back to my teens, 20s, probably even into my early 30s, we don't think about the process of things.
Yeah.
We think about what's the fastest way to get to my destination.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Think that has to do with everything in life, from the person we date to the career we have, to what's the fastest educational path.
Yeah.
What's the fastest route to my career, my destiny. We don't think about the process. And I think many of us in our 20s and 30s, I can look back and say I missed a lot of great opportunities. I'm a 45-year-old man, so when I think about myself as a parent, I look back 10, 15 years ago, just in that example, like I know I'm a good dad. I know my boys love me.
Yeah.
But as a parent who only has the experience that they have being children, like my oldest son is 18. I'm only an 18-year-old experienced father, right? But if I rewind 10 years, knowing what I know now, I'd go back and learn some things in that process. Now, put that same principle into my spiritual life, my mental, emotional health, my physical health. And I think in our 20s, we're not thinking about process. We're just thinking about how soon can I get there?
That's good. That's a good point, because so it's not something that our generation is dealing with because of maybe we try to find shortcuts because everything is being instantaneous, you know. So it's not something just that our generation is experiencing. Your generation experienced too. Right? Yeah.
I would say every generation experiences it. I think, and I mean, coincidentally, we have 3 Latinos here sitting, you know, and I know that although you're Mexican, I'm Salvadorian, you come from a Puerto Rican background. While we're all Latinos, we might have different distinctives to the way we were raised. But I know what's typical in the Latino family is we're taught work ethic. We're taught like, hey, if you don't work, you don't eat. We're taught like, you know, you got to hustle, you got to make things happen. But I think in all of that, you know, we're not taught the process.
That's good.
Like, I mean, I love my dad. I have an amazing dad, and this is no discredit to him as a father, but I can't recall my dad saying, hey, you know what? In life, you're going to fail. In life, not everybody's going to like you. In life, you're gonna make some bad mistakes. And guess what? That doesn't mean it's the end of you. It's part of the process. So, you know, as a Latino myself, I've had to learn how to pick myself up without the encouragement of people saying, guess what? It's not the end. I recall 2 moments in my 20s and in my 30s that were significant that could have potentially been the end of me. And by the end of me is like, you know, some people make mistakes that they just never outlive that mistake. You know, and I made mistakes, and I have no problem talking about them because part of who I am as a 45-year-old man, I own my own home after filing bankruptcy in my 20s. Right? You know, so some people file bankruptcy, they never get out of that. They never restore their credit. They never restore the way they save money, the way they handle money. That was not taught to me. So I overcame that. I know that. That's something that I learned, guess where? In the process of having to file bankruptcy, of having to like not have money, of not being able to even open a bank account. Because so I don't say this to cast shame on my past. I say this to hopefully this helps somebody that if that's your story, like let's look back. Who is having those conversations about money, about money management, about, you know, your FICO score. Like when was the last time your dad asked you, yo son, how's your FICO score? Man, I wish Pops asked me that question. Because if you live in the United States of America, that number better be above 700. If not, you're in a percentile of people that, you know, you're on that, you're climbing that mountain. And when I discovered that, it was, you know, so yeah, I mean, we could talk about so many things I learned about those 20s. So I have no idea why. That was in my 20s. And I'm like, dude, I remember that season of my life. I was like, Lord.
No, but it's funny because, you know, as you're talking about that, that's something that even for me, like, again, being 28, like, so I'm just getting through my 20s. But, you know, having the experience of like working with youth, working with young adults, that's something that I've always realized is that, well, as I've gotten older is, you know, it's funny that as parents, it seems like there's always been the stigma of, oh, once you're 18, oh, you know, you're an adult, there's this and that, you go and figure it out. But to me, I feel like there's so much learning that needs to continue happening from that 18 to even up to 30, even more. Like there's so many lost like conversations.
An 18-year-old ain't ready, man. I'm sorry. They're not ready. I would say
even more so.
Not ready.
So, and that's what I think is funny is that, like, to me, it's like, you know, that's such a common theme is like, oh yeah, 18 and you're out, 18 and you're good. It's like, no way. I remember me, same thing. Even though I was in college, I was like, I didn't know how to do, I didn't know how to file my taxes. I don't know how to do all this stuff. Like, you know, and there's that attitude of kind of, you just have to figure it out, you know? And I mean, I give you credit because I'm like, you're not that much like older from the fact that like we have the internet, people like it's YouTube, whatever.
Yeah.
But you guys, for but so your generation, it wasn't
had
that
some
common.
limits. We had some limits.
You had still had those limitations. So it's just crazy. Yeah. So.
Yeah, no, and I think part of what I want to ask you, we can go many routes with this whole thing. But I think part of what I want to ask you is that you're a man that pursues, counsel with people, you pursue wisdom.
Yeah.
And you're not the type of person that I do believe that you know a lot, but I think you're not the type of person that they're cocky about, like saying, oh, I know everything. And you pursue counsel, you invest in it. Yeah. And but I want to ask you, where did that come from, and where do you kind of start that process of saying, you know what? I'm gonna invest in that aspect of my life.
Right. I think when anyone fails at anything in life, that the failure is the opportunity. Yeah. And I think some people don't understand that failure is the opportunity to make a difference, right? So I either learn from this or I'm destroyed by this. Yeah. And so when I made mistakes financially, so here's my, just since I talked about it, I had no plans on confessing to the world that that I filed bankruptcy in my 20s, right? Here's what happened to me. When I was in my senior year of high school, I was 17 years old. I graduated when I was 17. My senior year in high school, I started working for, at the time, what was Security Pacific Bank. I was in the banking industry at 17 years old. Yeah. I remember my bank manager, she loved me. She was a great mentor of mine. She taught me so many things. She taught me social skills. I remember I'd go to meetings and I'd say hello to everyone, and she'd come by me and she was like, make sure you go around the room and you shake everyone's hand, look them in the eye. Simple things like that. I knew God had my back. Wow. Like my mom and dad taught me how to be respectful to people in our family. But, dad wasn't going to work with me. Yeah, so the fact that this lady who was, like I'm a 17-year-old kid, she would like, make sure you go around the room, shake everyone's hand, look them in the eye. Like I was so embarrassed that she said that to me, but I did exactly what she did. So going back to failure, right? I come up in the banking industry. I'm making a ton of money as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old. So I made a decision at 19 not to stay in college. Yeah. Because at 19, I was making more than some people that I knew were in their 30s with a college degree. Yeah. Now, this is back in 1994, 95, 96. If those of you that have been alive that long know that the real estate market was on the come up. And so from that banking job, I went to another banking job, and one opportunity after another. Man, I had it made, man. I was wearing the suits. I had the car. I was driving. Like everything was good. And but no, I didn't know money management. Yeah. I had money and I was spending money. Wow. Yeah. I had it all. I mean, let me call it out I had the Timberlands. Yeah. I had the Filas. I had Nautica and Polo and listen, everything was Maurice Francois Jabot and Guess and all like listen, the Hilfiger. Like the Hilfiger's back now. I'm like, you guys don't know Hilfiger. Come on, like I know Hilfiger. Back then the car was like, if you had a Honda Accord, I had a Honda Accord coupe loaded with rims. Listen, if you had a Honda Accord back then, you were doing it. Yeah. And so as a 19, 20-year-old, but listen, guess what? The market crashed. I lost my job. And what did I have? I had good clothes in the closet. I had fancy shoes and I had a nice car, living in an apartment building. But I had no savings. And so going back to your question, I'm sorry, I kind of went on a rabbit trail there. I had an opportunity to learn from that. I could have either just succumbed there and just given myself into, living a pitiful life of failure, or I could learn. And so the commitment that I made was don't be embarrassed to ask for help. Yeah. Yeah, wow, that's good. That's huge. And I think this generation, coming back to what you said, I think this generation is so afraid of being seen as weak that they don't ask for help. Yeah. So you guys go to the church that I pastor. So now I have a great story about asking for help. If I could just say it real quick. So this is a true story. I was probably 9 years old. And my older brother and his friends had planned a day to the Hawthorne High swimming pool. Okay. And like they never asked me or invited me to come. I'm the little brother. Nobody wants a little brother hanging around. On this day, they invited me out. And so the only prerequisite for me to be able to go with them was I had to know how to swim. Yeah. So when my brother and his friends all started asking me, do you know how to swim? I'm like, heck yeah, I know how to swim. Listen, I had not taken a swimming lesson one day in my life. I did not know how to swim. So we go to the Hawthorne High swimming pool. Everybody goes to like the deep pool. There's a diving board. There's like an Olympic-sized diving board. And everyone, one by one, this is the only time in my life that I did not want to go first. I was like, you guys go, you guys go. Yeah. And you know what? I'm taking mental notes because I'm an achiever. I'm not going to punk out. I'm going to do what everybody's doing. I'm seeing how everybody's diving. I'm kind of looking into the deep. I'm like, okay, they dived. Okay, this is my plan. And it's finally my turn to dive. And I'm on the top of this diving board. And I'm thinking, okay, this is what I'm going to do. I had it all figured out. I'm going to dive in. And I'm going to, as soon as I touch the bottom of the pool, I'm going to push myself to the wall of the pool. And I'm going to come out. I figured it out. So here's what happens. I dive. This was a 13-foot swimming pool. I'm 9 years old. There's no way that I'm going to touch the bottom or any wall of this pool. And I remember going into the water and what were seconds seemed like minutes, if not hours. Yeah. And I remember just stretching my little leg, trying to tap something and not being able to touch anything. And then all of a sudden, and this is the teaching moment that I'm hoping helps somebody. All of a sudden, there's this tension going on in my mind. Yeah. As soon as you hit the top, if you cry out for help, everybody's going to think you're a punk and a liar. Yeah. But if you don't cry out for help, you're going to lose your life.
Dang.
And I want you to know that what seemed to be seconds turned, in my mind, it seemed like an eternity. Yeah. But I want you to know that as soon as I came out that water, clearly I'm here to tell the story. Guess what I did? I screamed, help, help. And listen, my brother, all his friends, the lifeguard that was on duty, there were like 10 people in the swimming pool coming to rescue me. Wow. Yeah. So let's go into real time. Yeah. You know why many of us are stuck? Yeah. We don't cry out for help, man. Yeah. And there are people around us. We have friends, we have family, we have church members. We have people that have more experience than us, but we are so caught up in our image and our identity that we don't want to see we got it all figured out. And so going back to my 20s and 30s, man, I learned in my 20s when I lost it all to cry for help. Wow. And I had people around me. They helped me. They helped me learn how to do money management. They helped me learn how to, save money. They helped me to make good decisions. Everything from, and it wasn't just people from the church. It was family members. It was friends. They helped me do this. I remember when it was time for me to buy my house. I thought I couldn't buy a house because I had a bankruptcy on my record. This goes back to 2012. And I go to the bank. It was Wells Fargo, and I filed. And they told me my FICO score. That's how ignorant I was. I didn't even know what FICO was to that. Like I wasn't even thinking that way. Yeah. And they were like, "Yeah, you're approved for this amount." And I'm like, "What? What?" Yeah. And I had mentors and people around me, but all of that was an outcome to me not being too proud to say, "That's good." Yeah. Can somebody help me? Yeah. Yeah. Please help me. Like I'm drowning here. I'm drowning in my debt. I'm drowning in my sorrow. I'm drowning in my brokenness and my addictive behaviors. Wow. I'm drowning in my mental health, in my relational health. Yeah. Like, and I mean, what's a cry for help?
Yeah, I think, when I think about today and why, because I totally agree with you. I think the pride and the desire to hold up some sort of image is like, that is what holds people to this idea of not wanting to cry out for help. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have a view into people's life that we never had before in regards to social media and being able to see things. And, I think we always fall victim to this. Literally I can think of an example of yesterday. Like there's like this TikTok couple that like my wife like loves, to watch, and they're funny. Like, don't get me wrong. Like I've seen the videos and they're hilarious. And then like literally last night she posted a video that they're like taking a separation. Like they're like not divorcing, but they're separate. And they look like the happiest couple in the world. Yeah. And the girl's hilarious. The guy's like cheering her on in every video. And you think they're the perfect couple. But obviously, you know, life happens, and I don't know the story, but to me, that's a perfect example of exactly what we face today. And what happens to us is we see that couple and think, am I not good enough? Am I not a good husband? Is you know, can I do better? Or maybe, you know, you just start questioning so many things about your life. So the fear of asking for help or saying I'm not in a good place, you know, you start comparing yourself to either total strangers or even your own friends, thinking, well, if they're in a good place, how can we not be in a good place?
Right.
And it's all of this comparison. And to me, I think that's a huge thing that we all face, of trying to beat each other, trying to get it. And I know, I mean, I feel it. I don't talk about it much, but I totally feel it when it comes to those things. And I think that's something that I think is a lie that we continue to believe, that we have to be at a certain place by a certain age. We have to accomplish certain things. Yeah. And what it's ultimately doing is killing us, in the sense of the fact that we're putting this pressure on ourselves that our friends or people around us aren't necessarily expecting, because the fact that we don't have to have it all together. And I think that's what it's challenging. But it's so true. It's so real.
Yeah, and part of what I wanted to talk to you also is, I think that many times where we are in this process, you know, manhood can be very different for a lot of us, you know, and I think that what I want to ask you, like, you have been in circles of people that many of us probably wish we were, you know. You have been in proximity with people that probably a lot of us would probably never be. But the thing is, like, how do you got to a place where you were able to maybe be in a healthy man, emotionally and spiritually? How do you, like, actually achieve that so that you are actually in a, maybe you maximize your gifts, you maximize who you are in those places, in those circles of influence? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think it's twofold for me. I think, if I understand correctly, how have I gotten to those places? Yeah. And how do I think the big question is, how do you get invited back? Oh. Okay. Right? Because some people will have an opportunity to go somewhere and be around certain people, but they don't get invited back.
Yeah, yep.
Right. So what was the high only getting there one time, and you could, you know, you snapped a picture as proof, but you never, like, you're not in proximity. So to answer that question in some shape or form, I would say make a commitment to approach these opportunities as a student and not as the master. Like, if you make a commitment to always learn, the people that you identify as, like, you know, they're more successful, and I hate that word successful because that's all a matter of opinion. I would say they're effective, right? Because we're all effective in some shape, way, or form, but they're effective. They have influence. They have impact. Make a commitment to go into these spaces where you are not going to try to outshine anybody else in the room. Yeah. And I've seen this firsthand. Like, I've invited some close friends of mine. I'm not even gonna drop their names. You know, hey man, we got an opportunity to go have dinner with these people, man. Like, you know, like, let's go sit in the room. And interestingly enough, I'm the one who invites them, kind of sets this opportunity up for some people, and I'm just hoping that whoever I invited, like, go in with the posture of, what can I learn? Yeah. And it's so frustrating to me. You know, like, whoever's hosting us starts to kind of share their wisdom. And I'm thinking, like, man, this is good stuff. Yeah. And my buddy's over here like, oh yeah, we've done that before. And I'm thinking, like, you ain't done that before. You've done a fraction of it, but, like, it's not, you know, so again, going back to, like, have a posture of learning. Yeah. Approach these opportunities with what can I learn? How can I position myself? Now, you don't want to be that ignorant learner. You're sitting there, like, where it's obvious, like, you should not be in the room. But, like, if you got invited to the room, listen, you belong there. Yeah. Wow. Don't second guess it. Yeah. Don't question it. Wow. You're there because you belong there. Yeah. If you believe in God, He ordained and orchestrated for you to get it. If you believe in the cosmos and how the stars turn, the fact that somehow, some way you ended up in this room, in this meeting, in this environment, guess what? You are meant to be there. Yeah. So maximize that moment. Yeah. And then the second thing, so have a posture of learning. Second thing is, ask yourself this question: what value can I add to me being here?
Yeah.
Who, like,
That's actually a really good question.
So even if like, so let's say I don't talk to the main person in the room, because I mean we have all been at events or at places where there's a main person, right? And I'm not gonna drop names, but we know, right? Like, what if you never get to talk to the main person? But you're having a drink with somebody, or you're having a meal with somebody, and those table conversations become deep. Like, I have a good soul friend today that I met in one of those environments. That me being in that environment was not about who hosted it, who planned it, who was it honoring. It was about, I got sat at a table with someone that I didn't know before that night, and now we are lifelong, like, deep friends. Where his family and my family, we add value to each other. So, you know, like, ask yourself that question: if I'm here, what value am I gonna add?
Yeah, that's really good.